So I have to tell you that I'm not really prepared to preach on the spiritual practice of appreciation. I woke up kind of grumpy, kind of out of sorts, a little stressed. And I thought, what am I going to say that is enlightening and enheartening about appreciation? So I decided that rather than even attempt to have a coherent message, it's going to be like a recipe. And there's going to be different ingredients in it, and you're going to like some of the ingredients, and you're not going to like some of the ingredients. But together, they might make something good, or I've had in my cooking life some dramatic failures. So let's see. See, it was at the Monday morning Bible discussion, which has really turned into a time of the folks gathered there helping me kind of figure out about the sermon and about the scripture that's going to happen. And it was a wonderful moment as we looked at Psalm 100 and heard the kind of overflowing joyousness of it. And we began to think about the role between gratitude and joyousness. And then there was some little twist that happened. And we started to talk about less about us being grateful and more about us expressing appreciation. About us taking the time, making the space to say to someone what we really genuinely in our hearts appreciate about them. Remember that old story about the teacher who had a class of teenage boys, and she could feel a kind of competitiveness and a kind of the kibitzing was getting to have quite an edge to it. And she pondered about what to do as a teacher to kind of prepare these young men for the life that they were going to have. And so she did that thing, I'm sure many of you have done it, where you put somebody's name at the bottom of a piece of paper, and then you write one statement about what you appreciate about them, and then you fold that up, and you pass it to the next person, and they write one statement of what they appreciate about that person. And so it goes. And she did it in her class. And at first, of course, there was a lot of, nervous laughter, and everybody was embarrassed. But then they kind of settled into the task. And when they were all finished and they had all written on each page, they were returned to the person about whom the appreciations had been given. And nothing more was said. But she noticed a shift in the class. The humor was more good-natured. There wasn't such an edge. Well, one of those boys, I have to tell you, appreciation always makes me cry. I think appreciation is a very thin place when we say it and mean it. So in this story, and it's a true story, one of the boys went overseas in the Vietnam War, and he was killed. And the teacher went to his service, and she said, you know, I lost touch with the boys. I wish I could have seen how they turned out and continued to be part of their lives, but I couldn't. And the mother said, you know, you continued to be a part of his life. And she opened up his wallet and she took out a very frayed sheet of paper that was the appreciations that had been written so many years ago. She said, he never went anywhere without it. I think as a people, we are starved for honest appreciation. We rush on. Our lives are busy. We don't have the time, or maybe we don't have the opportunity. We don't make the opportunity to say what is in our hearts about the people around us. This has been like a three-part little series on the Psalms. And the first one was about the spiritual practice of evolving and changing and recognizing that. The second one was about lamenting and releasing that which is heavy on our heart. This third one, the spiritual practice of appreciation, is much more tender. It's a much more vulnerable thing to share with other people. One of the things that we're talking about as we move to be a regional church is that we'll become a regional church that's built on small groups, 8 to 12 or 15 people who will gather wherever they gather, who will talk together and get to know each other in a way that we do not know each other now, I think. And that I think we're quite hungry for. These small groups will invite people to be vulnerable, to know each other, and to be known. How many of you have ever gone to a funeral or a memorial service or a celebration of life, and you've said when you were on your way out, oh, I wish I would have known that about that person, because I would have talked to them about that. That statement is a failure of appreciation, of the spiritual practice of appreciation. We don't have the time, or we shy away from, tell me your story. Tell me who you are. Tell me what you care about. Tell me what makes you cry. Tell me what makes you laugh until you can hardly stand up because your stomach hurts so hard. What is it? Tell me who you are. Because in the spiritual practice of appreciation, we practice vulnerability together. Does this make sense? A lot of people practice gratitude. I had somebody who told me that every day they write down 10 things that they're grateful for. But it's like they write them out of their head. It's like it doesn't touch the heart. And so they go around continuing to be critical and grumpy. The spiritual practice of appreciation calls us to slow down, to pay attention, maybe only to one or two things in a day, because we can't go around looking deeply into everybody's eyes and saying, I want to hear your story. We couldn't do that all at once, eh? We'd drive ourselves and other people crazy. But just once or twice a day, to take the moment to be fully present. Susan, who's working in, filling in the office, and that, when I talked to her about what the sermon was going to be about, she chose a picture of a snowdrop, because she said on her daily walks now, she finds herself constantly looking for snowdrops. And she's so excited when she finds one that she bends over and almost wants to talk to it. And a day when she finds snowdrops is a beautiful day. Taking the time, giving the focus, being vulnerable, letting something be tender, is what the spiritual practice of appreciation. I've been floating an idea around in my head, and I shouldn't say it because, of course, you get tired of my half-baked ideas. But Noreen Lee died, and so her family decided, which is totally, their right, that they're not going to have a service for her. But like Noreen sat in our community for how many years? I thought to myself, what if every time one of our members, one of our community passes away and the family says no service, what if we took 10 minutes in our worship, in our Sunday worship, to remember and to appreciate what that person meant to us? See, don't ever ask me to talk about appreciation, because it's like it would wreck up whatever series we're doing and whatever themes we're on, but somehow it would feel like we were honoring what was in our midst, who was in our midst. It would be like we were saying, this person graced our presence. Let us not let them disappear without us expressing their appreciation. Let's do it when they're living, but for sure, if we haven't all done it when they're living, let us for sure not let their life come to an end without us expressing our appreciation. You know, we don't have to go against the family's wishes. We just do it gently and as part of our community life. Well, all right. Okay, so we'll make that happen. So if you've got stories about Noreen that come from our life here, we'll just make that happen, okay? Thomas Merton said, "There's no neutrality between gratitude and ingratitude. Those who are not grateful soon begin to complain of everything." I'd say there's no neutrality between expressing appreciation and not expressing appreciation. And that when we don't express our appreciation, the life of our community is the big loser. Well, at least when I don't have a sermon, you should get out of church on time. So I thank you very much for listening, and it's a song of